So let's go and take a look at this one. And if we were going to multiply. Now, what usually gets a lot of students tripped up here is they think, well, if I need to simplify this. And again, guys, like when we have two functions now, right? And our idea is to get this down to one function or a number. Now, typically, you guys think, well, how is something going to be simplified? How can we reduce this? Because we're multiplying. So how is something going to be reduced? Well, the easy answer is usually, a lot of times, is using the division property. Meaning we have something in the numerator, something in the denominator that's the same, and they get divided out. But that's not always the case, as you're going to see in this problem. All right? Now, one of the problems that most students do when they first start these problems is they convert everything. So they say, oh, sine of x, that's 1 over cosecant of x. Secant, that's 1 over cosine of x. They immediately go into the reciprocal functions or reciprocal identities. But as you guys look at this, actually, let's write it like this. Did I just like simplify this problem at all? Did I make it like any easier? No. Like, what can I do with this? Nothing, right? So to give you guys some tips, there's nothing like mathematically you didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't do anything that's really going to help you solve the problem at all. OK? So we wouldn't really want to do that. Now, what some students then look at this, and this is not a bad way of looking at it as well, is some students say, well, why don't I look at this in terms of x's and y's, right, from the unit circle? So couldn't you think of this as, so let me actually write it down below. Cosecant times 1 over cosecant x. Well, that's just not going to help us out do anything. So then what other students do is say, well, then could we determine sine as, so step number 1, bad. Process number 2. Some students just think of this in terms of y's and x. Sine is y. Secant is 1 over x. Right? And then when you multiply them, you get y over x. And now you think, well, based on the unit circle, which trigonometric function is y over x? Tan. So this is equal to tangent of theta. Now, I like that method for first timers, people that are getting used to this that don't like it. Fine. Do that as much as you need to. But obviously, if you guys recognize, if you're going to do this whole worksheet using that method, it's going to take you a while. So I need you to kind of start picking up the pace a little bit. And so when you're comfortable, another way to look at this is not always into that black box right there between by the monitor. Yep, right there. Everything. Yep, just everything. So another thing is what commonly happens when we're doing these problems is when you have things in terms of sines and cosines, that makes life easier. Not always, but a lot of times converting everything in terms of sines and cosines is easiest. So that's basically what's wrong with this, with why this didn't help us. This was sine, and then I converted it to cosecant. Why don't we just keep sine as sine, but convert secant to terms of cosine? And then we obtain sine of x over cosine of x, which is equal to tangent of x. Right? And that's not too bad. So you guys can see how that goes a little bit quicker. And also,